NFL Week 3 is set to kick off in just a few hours with Dolphins Bills. Well, we're going to talk about the latest NFL trade rumors before Week 3. This is NFL Daily by Chat Sports. I am Nick Roloff, and the aforementioned Dolphins do start this week, and they are also the epicenter, if you will, of trade rumors because all eyes are on Miami. They have a lot of solid veterans, but the team has not performed up to expectations. And assuming if that 11.5-point spread remains true, the Dolphins would fall to 0-3 and likely become sellers at the NFL trade deadline. Well, they have 4 veterans that I truly do believe could be on the block. The biggest name is obviously Tyreek Hill, but then you've got a trio of edge rushers, Bradley Chubb, Jaelan Phillips, Matthew Judon, who are all in their own right potential 1-year and done players in Miami. Judon's on a 1-year contract. Phillips only has 1 year left. Chubb is very much a cut candidate following the year. So it's like, could the Dolphins fire sale the veterans and these 4 find new homes after the November 4th trade deadline? Absolutely. We're going to talk about these 4, specifically Tyreek Hill, but the bosses here at Chat Sports said we need to get 200 likes. If we don't get 200 likes, no video coming tomorrow on the channel. I want us to bring you more content. Help me out. Make my bosses happy. Hit that thumbs up icon right now. When speaking on Tyreek Hill trade rumors, the 2 most likely destinations for Tyreek are the Kansas City Chiefs and Pittsburgh Steelers. This was reported by Pro Football Talk, a.k.a. Mike Florio, but they also just make the most sense. The Steelers are in a win-now mode with a veteran quarterback like Aaron Rodgers and need wide receiver 2 help outside of DK Metcalf. The Chiefs' offense has been abysmal through 2 weeks. Rashee Rice is still suspended. Xavier Worthy has been banged up, and Tyreek Hill would absolutely take that offense to another level. And Tyreek had an interesting week 1, but bounced back in a big week 2 against the New England Patriots. And as someone who watches a lot of Dolphins football, if you did not know, I host the Dolphins channel here, Tyreek Hill is the most likely trade candidate, but the raw numbers do not tell the whole story. In week 1 against the Colts, Tyreek Hill was open so often, and he could have connected on a pair of 30-yard gains and even a 40-yard touchdown if Tua had the time and delivered an accurate football. Tyreek Hill, when you watch the film, has been absolutely phenomenal through 2 weeks of creating separation and getting open. But Tua has just not been able to find him. And I do think he is the most likely trade candidate for Miami since he has a $52.8 million cap hit next year and is going to be cut following the season. Maybe the Dolphins try to flip him at the deadline, assuming they're sellers. But I'll also tell you to keep an eye on Jaelan Phillips and Bradley Chubb. I mentioned it. Phillips has a 1 year left on his deal, that 5th-year rookie option. Bradley Chubb had a contract restructure and was almost cut this offseason. If the Dolphins continue to lose, they will sell at the deadline, and you can likely bet Tyreek Hill is gone, as well as maybe a couple pass rushers who aren't going to be extended in the 305. But pinned comment on today's show is all about Tyreek Hill. Will the Dolphins trade the all-pro wide receiver? Type Y for yes or type N for no. We'll move over to the Cleveland Browns and Greg Newsome because the Browns, who are 0-2, could be sellers at the deadline as well. And I think their top trade candidate is cornerback Greg Newsome, who, like Jaelan Phillips, is on the final year of his rookie contract, that 5th-year rookie option. Well, Newsome, the former first-rounder out of Northwestern, is an intriguing player because the first 3 years of his career, he was phenomenal in Cleveland, but had a really down year last season, which made him a trade candidate this past offseason, wasn't moved, but had such a good week 1 where it's like, okay, is he regaining his form from his first 3 years? Well, he had a down week 2, which is so odd because he was facing the Cincinnati Bengals, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and threw a shutout out there. No completions allowed. A QB rating when target of 39.6. Well, then they played the Baltimore Ravens, which offense has just been absolutely humming in the first 2 weeks of the year, and he was getting lit up, whether it's DeAndre Hopkins, whether it was Zay Flowers, allowed 88 yards on 6 catches. It was night and day on Greg Newsome's performance from week 1 to week 2. And as I pointed out just a second ago, he is on the last year of that rookie contract. And if the Cleveland Browns didn't extend him before the season, I think there is a reasonable expectation that Cleveland may not look to extend him this upcoming offseason. And if that is the case, well, then you would hope, from a Cleveland Browns perspective, you trade him at the deadline for a potential early or late day 2 pick and recoup a draft pick rather than lose him in free agency for nothing. And I got some potential suitors coming up in a second. But this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every single day. Well, with the right decisions on Prize Picks, you can get paid where it's good to be right. It's so simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Get in on the action in more than 40 plus states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you could still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. Double your money even if one of your picks does not hit. I do have an entry for the Thursday night matchup. I got more than Devon Achane and Jaelan Waddle receiving yards. I do think the Dolphins will be able to score and move the ball against a Bills defense without Ed Oliver and Matt Milano. Pairing that up with the max discount Patrick Mahomes half a passing yard. Take advantage of that max discount from Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. When I think about Greg Newsome destinations, these 5 make the most sense to me. And yes, you do see the Miami Dolphins on here, even though I think they're sellers. We have seen teams in the past, like the Chicago Bears, be out of the playoff race, but still buy low on a future player. They did it with Montez Sweat just a couple of off seasons ago. The Dolphins' secondary is atrocious, and they could use a CB1 where Newsome might be an option for them as a third-round pick. But the Cowboys desperately need cornerback help. Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs have been spotty to start the year. The Raiders, if they end up playing well, could use some secondary help. That group is absolutely abysmal. And then 2 Super Bowl contenders, Philadelphia and Green Bay. Both have solid defenses, but the glaring need to take them over the top and become an elite unit, I mean, the Packers are already an elite unit, they can just get better, is if they add a legit CB. Packers front 7 is legit, but that back end outside of Xavier McKinney is a little sketchy, and we've seen the Eagles struggle on the back end as well, specifically in that first half against the Dallas Cowboys in Week 1. And I think Greg Newsome is a great buy low candidate for a team needing CB help now, but also for the future. This guy's 25 years old. He was a former first rounder, has logged some serious good seasons as well as a good Week 1. If the price tag for Newsome truly is a late second-round pick, third-round selection where most people project it is, I just have a hard time not buying low on Newsome. And if you like what you see, you can extend him very easily. If you don't, well, it was only a third-round pick. I know those are top 100, top value picks, but I got to be honest, I don't think it's a bad move for a contending team. Make sure you do subscribe for daily content, whether it's NBA, NFL, college football. We have you covered on every piece of news you need in the sports world. Join the family here at Chat Sports, over 415K already subbed. We're going to go to the Cincinnati Bengals now, who kind of led the headlines this week with Joe Burrow's turf toe injury, out 3 months in all likelihood, potentially out for the year. Could return late December. We'll see how the season progresses for Cincinnati. But many people believe they could be hunting for a quarterback on the trade market. They were active in terms of signing practice squad QBs this week, but Jake Browning is their starter. And although I think he's a solid option for them, trading for a legit starter could really provide dividends for them. And I've got 5 potential targets that make a lot of sense for me. 2 of them in New York. Listen, the Giants are 0-2, could easily fall to 0-3 this week if they lose to the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Then they maybe turn to Jackson Dart, their first-round pick from Ole Miss, sooner rather than later. Well, if they do that, one of their veteran quarterbacks could absolutely be traded. Whether it's their current starter, Russell Wilson, who leads the NFL in passing yards, or Jameis Winston. First of all, Jameis in Cincinnati would be electric. They would throw for 400 yards every week, I think. Now, they would also probably turn the ball over a lot. But I think the same thing could be said for Joe Flacco, who could easily turn to Dylan Gabriel or Shadur Sanders sooner rather than later. And we know the story in Atlanta is all around Michael Penix. Would the Bengals be willing to eat that money and trade for Kirk Cousins? TBD. But if the Bengals want to win games this season and potentially provide them with the ability to stay in the playoff hunt and then allow Joe Burrow to return in late December, early January potentially, I don't think Jake Browning is that guy. Could he go 3-6? Maybe, and that would put them at 5-6 heading into the home stretch. But the point is, the Bengals haven't started the season hot over the last 3 years. They're started the year 2-0 with wins over the Jags and Browns. Could they maybe strike while the iron's hot, grab a quarterback that can keep them afloat, go 500, one game under 500, buy time until Joe Burrow potentially returns in late December? Because 3-month injury, it's only mid-September. That puts it potentially that return date in around Christmas, where you have 2 or 3 weeks left in the year. I don't know. I think it could make sense for the Bengals. And if they do trade for a quarterback, who should it be? Probably keep an eye on one of the Giants QBs, whether it is Jameis Winston or Russell Wilson, especially if they turn the Jackson Dart soon. Let me know the name the Bengals should trade. All right, final word on today's show. I don't really have any concrete belief that this is going to happen, but to me, I would keep an eye on a potential blockbuster Eagles trade involving A.J. Brown. Listen, the former All-Pro still got it wide receiver through 2 games, 6 receptions on 35 yards. It just has not been a productive start to the year for A.J. Brown. And I think if you're the Eagles, you've been able to beat your division rival at home. You've been able to go on the road and beat a Kansas City Chiefs team who really wanted to obviously beat you after losing in the Super Bowl, and you're able to do it without an effective passing game. Like, they still have Devontae Smith. They still have Jahan Dotson. They still have a good tight end in Dallas Goedert. They don't need A.J. Brown to win football games. So if you trade him for a second-round pick or more help on your defense, could that be something that comes to the horizon during the deadline? Sure. And I think A.J. Brown might request a trade as well if he doesn't start getting involved in the offense. It's just something to keep an eye on. I think A.J. Brown could absolutely be someone who gets traded if they continue to win football games, but he's not involved in the offense. That'll do it for today's show. Appreciate everybody for hanging out with us on this NFL Trade Rumors segment. Hit that sub button if you want more daily content.